Imagine walking across a stage today in early 2026, holding a diploma that cost you 4 years of your life and tens of thousands of dollars. You feel like you have conquered the world because you have mastered complex calculus, memorized the periodic table, and can analyze literature with precision. But then, reality hits you like a freight train the moment you receive your first professional paycheck. You stare at the numbers in total confusion, wondering why your take-home pay is so much smaller than the salary you negotiated. You see deductions for taxes, insurance, and social security, but you have no idea how those numbers were calculated or how to optimize them. Welcome to the real world, where knowing the quadratic formula will not help you pay your rent, and understanding ancient history will not explain why your bank account is always empty. For decades, we have been told that a good education is the golden ticket to a secure life. But as we navigate the economic landscape of 2026, it has never been clearer that our schools have failed us in the most fundamental way possible. They have taught us how to be productive employees, but they have carefully avoided teaching us how to be financially free adults. This gap in our education is not an accident. It is a systemic failure that is costing people hundreds of thousands of dollars over their lifetimes. Every year, millions of bright, ambitious individuals graduate with academic honors, but remains financially illiterate. They are handed the keys to a high-powered career without ever being taught how to drive their own financial vehicle. Consider the staggering weight of student loans in our current economy. The average graduate in 2026 leaves school with over $37,000 in debt. To an 18-year-old signing those documents, $37,000 sounds like a manageable number for a future professional. But nobody explains the math of compounding interest when it works against you. If you only make the minimum payments at a 7% interest rate, that $37,000 debt will balloon into nearly $70,000 by the time you pay it off. You are essentially mortgaging your 20s and 30s for a piece of paper, without ever understanding the true cost of that mortgage. We live in a world where you need a permit to catch a fish and a license to drive a car. Yet we allow young adults to sign life-altering financial contracts without a single hour of mandatory financial training. It is like handing someone the controls of a jet engine after they have only ever ridden a bicycle. The result is a generation of people who are academically prepared but financially paralyzed. The psychological toll is even heavier than the financial one. When you do not understand money, you live in a constant state of low-level anxiety. You feel like a passenger in your own life, watching your hard-earned wealth disappear into a black hole of taxes, interest, and inflation. But here is the truth that school never mentioned. The system is designed to reward the informed and penalize the ignorant. If you do not learn how to play the game of money, you become the prize that others are playing for. Our education system focuses on calculable skills because they are easy to test and easy to rank. But the most important skills in life are often the ones that cannot be measured on a multiple-choice exam. Skills like budgeting, understanding tax brackets, evaluating investments, and negotiating your worth. Think about the concept of a budget for a moment. Most people view a budget as a cage that prevents them from spending. But in reality, a budget is a map that gives you permission to build wealth. Less than 1/3 of Americans stick to a detailed budget. And it is no coincidence that the same percentage of people feel they will never be able to retire. We teach children advanced trigonometry, yet we fail to show them the simple 50-30-20 rule of money management. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for your future self. This basic mathematical framework could transform a struggling household into a wealthy one, yet it is absent from our classrooms. Then there is the absolute illusion of the quote-unquote dream home. For years, we have been told that buying a house is always the best investment you can make. But as we look at the data in 2026, we see a different story. If you live in a house and pay for its mortgage, taxes, and maintenance, that house is not an asset. It is a liability. It is taking money out of your pocket every single month. True wealth is built by acquiring assets that put money into your pocket while you sleep. The median net worth for households approaching retirement today sits at around $400,000. On the surface, that looks like a decent number. But when you look closer, you realize that the vast majority of that wealth is locked inside the walls of their homes. You cannot pay for groceries with your kitchen cabinets, and you cannot pay for medical bills with your backyard. These families are house-rich but cash-poor, living on the edge of financial ruin despite having a high net worth on paper. This brings us to the most powerful force in the universe: compound interest. Albert Einstein reportedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. He said those who understand it, earn it, and those who do not, pay it. In school, we might have touched on the formula for interest, but we were never shown the life-changing impact of starting early. If you start investing just $300 a month at age 25, you could retire with over $1 million. But if you wait until age 35 to start that same habit, you will end up with less than half of that amount. That 10-year delay costs you over $500,000. That is the price of a home, a college education for your children, or a decade of freedom. Yet, we spend our youth memorizing the dates of ancient battles instead of mastering the clock of compounding wealth. And let us not forget the complexity of the tax code. The government is essentially your silent business partner, and they take their cut before you even see your paycheck. Most people believe that income is just income, but the wealthy know that how you earn your money determines how much you keep. Earned income from a job is taxed at the highest rates, sometimes up to 37%. But investment income and capital gains are often taxed at much lower rates. By working for a salary, you are choosing the most expensive way to make a living. School prepares you to be a high-taxed employee, while the world rewards the low-taxed investor. The American Opportunity Tax Credit and other incentives exist to help people, but if you do not know they exist, you are essentially leaving free money on the table. It is like walking past a pile of cash every day because you were never taught to look down. This lack of knowledge creates a massive information inequality. The wealthy teach these strategies to their children at the dinner table, while everyone else is left to figure it out by trial and error. By the time most people realize how the game works, they are already decades behind. They hit their 50s and suddenly panic because they realize that Social Security was never meant to be a full retirement plan. The average Social Security benefit in 2026 is around $2,000 a month. In today's economy, that barely covers the essentials, leaving no room for the lifestyle people spent 40 years dreaming about. But it does not have to be this way. The journey to financial independence is not a straight line. It is a series of tipping points. The first tipping point is the hardest. Reaching your first $100,000. At this stage, your contributions are doing all the heavy lifting. It feels like you are pushing a massive boulder uphill and it is barely moving. But once you cross that threshold, the math begins to shift. The second tipping point occurs when your investments earn more in a year than you contribute. Suddenly, you have a second version of yourself working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without ever taking a break. The third tipping point is the ultimate goal. When your portfolio earns as much as your job pays, this is the moment of true freedom. At this point, work becomes an option, not a requirement. You no longer have to tolerate a toxic boss or a soul-crushing commute because your money is providing your life's fuel. The most incredible part of this journey is how much faster the second million comes than the first. It might take you 20 years to save your first $1 million, but it might only take 7 years to reach the second. This acceleration is the reward for the discipline you built in the early years. But most people never see this acceleration because they stop right before the curve starts to bend upward. They get frustrated by the slow start and decide to spend their savings on a new car or a luxury vacation. They trade their future freedom for temporary comfort. To succeed in 2026, you must become your own teacher. You must stop waiting for a system that was built for the industrial age to prepare you for the information age. Start by auditing your own financial life with the same intensity you used to study for your college exams. Understand your cash flow, eliminate high-interest debt, and begin the process of acquiring assets. Learn the art of negotiation, because a single conversation about your salary can be worth over $1 million over the course of your career. Most people are terrified to ask for more because they were taught to be obedient students who wait for a grade. But in the real world, you do not get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Understand that money is as much about psychology as it is about math. Recognize your emotional triggers for spending and develop habits that align with your long-term goals. The education system might have failed to give you a head start, but that does not mean you have to finish last. The information you need is now more accessible than ever before. You can learn more about wealth building in a weekend on the internet than you did in 4 years of high school. The only thing standing between you and financial security is the willingness to unlearn the myths you were taught. Stop measuring your success by the letters after your name or the brand of the car you drive. Start measuring it by the number of days you could survive if you stopped working today. That is the true definition of wealth: time and freedom. As we move further into 2026, the gap between the financially literate and the illiterate will only continue to grow. The world is becoming more complex, and the old safety nets are wearing thin. You cannot rely on your employer or the government to take care of your future. You are the CEO of your own life. and it is time to start acting like it. Invest in your mind first, because that is the only asset that no one can take away from you. Read the books the school ignored. Listen to the experts who have actually built wealth. And surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. The first million is hard because it requires you to change who you are. It requires you to develop a level of discipline and foresight that most people simply do not possess. But once you make that change, the rest of the journey becomes an exciting game of strategy. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to see patterns in the economy that allow you to move with confidence while others live in fear. Do not let another year go by while you remain a spectator in the financial arena. The best time to start was 10 years ago, but the second best time is right now. Take control of your trajectory and start building the life you actually want to live. Your future self is waiting for you to make the right choice today. Educate yourself, stay consistent, and never stop questioning the status quo. The School of Life is now in session, and the curriculum is entirely up to you.